A young woman's physical attractiveness is moderately good predictor of how frequently she dates. The better looking she is, the more dates she probably has, up to a point. It gets kind of interesting. They have a situation referred to as Miss America syndrome. Individuals that are so strikingly attractive don't date nearly as much as women who aren't quite as attractive. And the reason is because men are intimidated by them, as curious as that is. So if you have Miss America type, if you have an individual that everybody finds amazingly attractive, she probably doesn't date very much. The head cheerleader, the queen of the prom queen, they probably don't date as much as individuals who are considered not nearly as attractive as they are. As curious as that is. I guess it's not that curious. At first meeting, attractiveness seems to be the most important factor in the desire to date someone, and this is true for both males and females. Both males and females are not blind. They're not trying to discover how wonderful your personality is. What they're trying to do, what they do is they judge you by your attractiveness, and this is true of either males or females. And of course, there are multiple examples of this, not only in the movies, of course, but in real life. Objectification of women is very common, but the reality is there's also an objectification of males at the same time. Are women less superficial than men? And of course the answer is no. Women are just as attracted by attractiveness as men are. So women are just as superficial as men are. The matching phenomenon, since not everyone can be matched with the pick of the litter, how do we pair off? The answer is we gauge how attractive we are, and we try to find somebody with an equal attractiveness. If we are dating or if we are married to somebody who's a great deal more attractive than we are, then we feel nervous about it, as confusing and strange as that is. You can sit down. You can stay here. Oh, you want to talk to these guys?
Yeah,
well, there's only 3 of them. Is that enough?
Then they're basically in the class that I'm doing the survey for.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really don't need to talk to these 3.
I've already talked to these guys.
Okay, there you go. Tell me how we did.
Oh, okay.
I mean, how you did, how the survey went.
Well, there's like 4 sections to it.
Okay.
One section is just demography.
Right.
Another section is just kind of their own perspective about talking about sex and sexuality.
Sure.
And then another section is what they think is important for an undergraduate program. And then another section is more advanced topics in a human sexuality class. Sure. And I wanted to highlight all of these before talking in the short answer areas because I don't think a lot of people know the spectrum of what human sexuality could include. Sure. So then is the section 4 is the short answer questions.
So does it look like we're going to be able to offer a human sexuality class without very much blowback from the student body? Are the students in favor of us?
Oh, I haven't yet looked at
those statistics?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I was just curious.
I'm still promoting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so am I. And actually, we have a human sexuality class that we're going to offer next spring. Uh-huh. So I hope you come out with a positive answer on that. Mm-hmm. Because it looks like we're going to have one.
All right then.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. See you guys.
See you later. Oh, also, there's Emery Denny. What's her name?
Denise.
Denise Sensi and
Who's Corey?
Corey Morgan.
Yeah, Corey, and then what was his name?
People start coming in around 9:30.
Yeah.
So I'd say come back because more people start to come in.
Yeah.
So,
Unless you've already seen these people.
these guys are in my class.
We're all
Yeah, we're all-
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right then. I'll
Thank
try to
you.
come back at 9:30. I have a class too.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll see you.
So we seek somebody that's of equal attractiveness to us. I've been married to somebody who was a lot more attractive than I was, and guys, well, I told you this last time, my second wife, everybody, guys used to hit on her all the time, even if I was around. And the whole idea behind select movies is that the ugly guy gets the pretty girl. And that's, of course, the whole premise of Big Bang Theory. Is the fact that Penny's so much more attractive than all those nerdy guys. So who did she end up with? She ended up with, not the nerdiest one, I guess that would have been Sheldon, but she ended up with Leonard, which is kind of interesting if you watch it from the very beginning and you know what's going to happen. She talks to Leonard more than she talks to anybody else. And if she goes to the room and all four of those guys are in the room, she always talks to Leonard first, which is obviously she was somewhat attracted to him. This may be because both men and women do not want to be with someone that they don't think that they can keep, but they want to optimize their selection with the most attractive person possible. So when we are selecting a mate, we are looking for somebody that is similar to us, not more attractive than we are. As attractive as possible, but not somebody we can't keep, which is an odd idea. So which one's the more attractive, the lady on the left or the lady on the right?
Left.
Left? Left? Left or right? Left or right?
So obviously.
Oh, don't pretend that women don't look at other women and see whether they're attractive or not. Men do. When we go into a room, that's the first thing that we see. We see what people look like, so that we see how we measure up.
Women definitely look at one another and observe one another.
Well, yeah, they're looking at clothes. They're looking at all kinds of what kind of makeup do they have? Or she have on more makeup than I do? So which one's more attractive?
I guess obviously the left one.
Okay, left. Left. Yeah, actually, it's the same person. But this is her after she went through menopause, and this is her before she went through menopause. So she should be more attractive when she was had a possibility of reproduction. Does that make sense?
Okay.
She looks different. How about these two? These are not the same woman. Left or right? Both ugly. No. Which one's the most attractive?
Probably left.
Left?
Right.
Right?
It's hard to say because
Ugly's ugly, huh?
no,
Come
is
on.
this the picture or the person individual?
Which one's the most attractive?
I'd say
Right?
right.
Left? There is no right answer for it. How about these two? Left or right?
Left.
Left.
Left? Left?
Left.
Left? Left, okay. Why? What's wrong with the lady on the right?
She was just like,
Well, she's transgender?
yeah.
She looks skeptical about something. She's not smiling. She's
Not
just giving me a
smiling.
straight poker face.
She likes to be short.
Awfully wide chin. Okay. As curious as that is. How about these two guys?
Right.
Down the right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Left.
Left? Left or right? Right? Okay. Interesting. We're not done. How about these two guys? Left or right?
Right.
Right? Right?
Left.
Left?
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Alright. How about these two young ladies?
Left.
Left?
Left.
Left?
Right.
Right? Left? Men don't make passes at girls who wear glasses, and these, of course, these are both 12-year-olds. Okay.
I'm not even looking at it in a flirtatious way. I'm just looking at them like one seems more approachable.
Which is more approachable? Well, that has to do with,
The smile definitely.
Sure. Smiles have a lot to do with it.
Sends an invitation.
Exactly. But that's usually after we decide which one's the more attractive. Researchers have found that adults are more likely to stereotype an attractive person with more socially desirable traits as well. This stereotype was accepted even by people trained not to react to it. Teachers. Teachers are trained not to react to what somebody looks like. They're not supposed to react to race. They're not supposed to react to attractiveness. This is in Education 101. Don't react to what the person looks like. So if somebody's tall, you don't give them good grades. If somebody's just because they're tall, you don't give them good grades. If somebody's pretty, you don't give them good grades. Of course, this was a really serious problem back when there was racial discrimination was more prevalent. If you had African Americans in the class, they sat in the back of the room. And that's obviously not incorrect and shouldn't be done, but it still happened anyway. Attractiveness is one of the things you can't flush out of your mind. It just doesn't happen. Even psychologists would rather have attractive clients than unattractive clients, as confusing as that is. It's one of the reasons why, if we look at all the counseling psychologists in Arizona, where are they all? Where are all of these counseling psychologists? They're all in Phoenix. Damn it. So where does that leave Flagstaff? Where does that leave, I don't know, Tucson? They're all in Phoenix. And that's where all the attractive people are. That's where all the rich people go. They don't go to Flagstaff. They don't go to Tucson. They go to Phoenix. Anyway, so it has to do with money. It has to do with attractiveness. This stereotype is even seen in pre-verbal children and on every preschool playground around the world. Really kind of fascinating. And I talked to my wife about this. My wife is a reader at my grandson's first grade class. And she talks about this from time to time. The fact that some of the kids won't play with the chubby little girl. The kids won't play with the girl that's too tall. The kids won't play with the goofy looking kid. It's really kind of interesting. My grandson is the biggest flirt in the world. He's horrible. And he's been that way since he was a baby. This kid would make eyes at an attractive waitress. Oh, it was just shocking. I've got a picture of the kid making eyes at the waitress who's actually taking the picture. I know, it's terrible. This kid is horrible. And he's only 6 years old. He's been doing this since he was a year old. I mean, he's just horrible. So even when he was pre-verbal, he was selecting and here's the crazy part. So we're at a restaurant in Florida, and we're sitting on one side of the room, and he's making eyes at a waitress across the room. She's not even our waitress. She doesn't even come that close to us. Every once in a while she goes past. And this kid is batting his eyes at this lady, at this waitress. And eventually she came over and said, "You are just the cutest little guy." And she certainly wasn't coming over to flirt with me, I can assure you that. I'm old and ugly, and I know she was flirting with the little boy. Anyway. So pre-verbal kids, they see the same thing. Children learn early that attractive people are happier, they're sexually warmer, they're more outgoing, they're more intelligent, they're more successful. So if you think of your high school class and all the individuals that are more successful than other individuals, potentially it is the attractive person that is the most successful. Maybe they were given the benefit of the doubt as far as their education was concerned. So these people are academically successful, far more so than the unattractive kids in the class. I came from a class where the ugliest boy and the ugliest girl were both teachers' kids, and they were they should have been relatively successful. But the people that were the most successful were the ones that were the most attractive. The smart ones who were the most attractive. Despite the fact that these kids always knew when they were going to have a test of one kind or another because they were teachers' kids. But one of them became a social worker and never went past her bachelor's degree. The other one became a veterinarian. This is back when you didn't have to have a doctorate to be a veterinarian. But I have other, the pretty people in our class became actual medical doctors. We have one that's a medical doctor, we have 3 that are lawyers, we had one guy that was a city planner, as strange as that may seem. Anyway, they were all successful. But none more, of course, despite the fact that these individuals are considered, all these positive things are considered for attractive people aren't considered more honest. Not in the United States anyway. However, in Korea they are. They are considered they more honest and straightforward than individuals who are unattractive. Attractiveness and grooming affect first impressions on job interviews. Attractive people tend to hold more prestigious jobs and make more money than non-attractive people. I've had a problem in academia because I was an athlete. A lot of academics are not athletes, they're nerds, and they don't like athletes. So I've had a problem. This is really kind of interesting because my son was an athlete as well. He was actually a better athlete than I was. But so he went to get his master's degree in mathematics, and he had all these professors that, and some of them, he's a good-looking kid, but his problem was that he didn't look like an academic. You have to look like an academic. How do you look like an academic? Well, you wear glasses. That's how you do it. So obviously you're dumb as dirt because you don't wear glasses, and I'm stupid because I don't wear glasses except to read. Anyway, so my son was having just all kinds of problems in his, and he's a weightlifter, he's a bodybuilder. He's having just tons and tons of problems in his graduate classes. And then he gained a little bit of weight because he stopped going to the gym. He was working so hard. He stopped going to the gym, he gained a little bit of weight, got a little bit pudgy. And he, when he got pudgy, he had to start wearing readers, you know, the glass, I got some, readers. They're just glasses for people that are starting to suffer from presbyopia. Anyway, he started wearing his readers, he got a little bit fatter, all of a sudden he's making money. I know, how weird is this? So as soon as he started looking like all the other nerds in the school, they accepted it. When he looked like a bodybuilder, person that didn't have to read very much, he was rejected by even the college professors, as strange as that is. I've had the same problem in my college career, and it mostly had to do with the fact I didn't wear glasses. As a professor, talking to other professors, a lot of times they don't want to have anything to do with me because I don't wear glasses. As stupid as that sounds. But I don't have that problem here. Marius is my buddy. Of course, Marius doesn't wear glasses either. He must be as dumb as dirt, too. Attractiveness and grooming affect first impressions on job interviews. Attractive people tend to hold more prestigious jobs and make more money than non-attractive people. And this is one of the reasons that Donald Trump thinks he's so pretty. He's got lots and lots of money. So he must be attractive because he's the boss. Bosses are always attractive. A study in Canada put a monetary, a $1991 value on attractiveness. For every degree of attractiveness, the individual made $1,988. You can call that $2,000 if you want. It's probably closer to $3,000. So the prettier you are, the more money you make, as bizarre as that sounds. So when you go in for a job interview, I guess you should wear tight clothes. I don't know. Maybe that will work. How did I get this job, you ask? Well, I was on the telephone, so. I got this job on the telephone. Really, I had a telephone interview. They hired me from my telephone interview. I wonder if I look like what they thought I looked like. I mean, you can't tell what somebody looks like on the telephone. But from their voice, you always think, well, they're tall, or they're slender, or, you know, that kind of stuff. Of course, nobody ever looks like they sound, and I certainly don't. As confusing as that is. Stereotype may actually be true. Researchers have found that attractive children and adults are more relaxed. They're more outgoing, they're socially polished, they're popular, and they're gender typed. In other words, if they're a male, they act more like a male. They act more masculine. And if they're a female, they act more feminine. And that's what they mean by gender type. But this may be a self-fulfilling prophecy in that people treat an attractive person better, and so they may feel better about themselves because people treat them better. And that you can take that one to the bank. They treat tall people better. Tall people are leaders. Why are they leaders? Because they're so much smarter than everybody else? Hell no, they're not smarter than everybody else. It's just that they're tall. So what does that do for short people? I was watching a movie last night. It was the Battle of Gettysburg. It was really kind of interesting. I have relatives that fought in the Battle of Gettysburg. One for one side and like 5 for the other side. But the generals were getting together and talking. And the one general went to get another general, and the second general was a cavalry general. He was really tall. And the first guy was really short. So when they went in, of course, you look around the room and you figure out, well, which one's in charge? Well, it was the tallest guy. And the second tallest guy was the cavalry officer. And so this other general, that had as many stars as everybody else, he was the short guy, and everybody ignored him because he was so short, as stupid as that sounds. Now, Robert E. Lee wasn't very tall, but Robert E. Lee was old. And so if you look at all the other Confederate generals, they were all tall and young and tall, and slender, of course, as confusing as all that is. So what does this have to do with the military? It has a lot to do with the military. If you look at military officers, if you look at generals, they did a study looking at just the pictures of people graduating from West Point. And they tried to determine which ones would become field grade officers, that's a colonel and above. And the more attractive they were, the more likely they were to make general. The taller they were, the more likely they were to make general. So if we look at all these people, all these individuals, we can tell which ones are going to become generals by the way they look and by their height. Researchers around, and we already talked about this. Remember, height had something to do with who gets elected president. That was one of the aspects of becoming president, especially now that we get to see what they look like. The other thing had to do with coming from a small family. Was another factor, and the other one was whether they wrote a book before they became president. Researchers around the world have discovered that the same type of faces in one corner of the world are considered attractive in all corners of the world. So somebody that's pretty in India is also pretty in the United States. Somebody that's pretty in China is also pretty in the United States. Somebody that's pretty in Africa, in Burundi, is also attractive in the United States. People judge women's faces more attractive if they have large eyes and baby faces, perhaps suggesting non-dominance. That's what men are looking for. They're looking for women that won't try to dominate them. Men are seen as more attractive if their faces suggest dominance and maturity. So no baby faces as far as men are concerned, baby faces as far as women are concerned. People perceive noses, legs, or statures that are not unusually large or small as attractive. So it really doesn't matter what your legs, your nose, or your height is, doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's not weird. If it's weird, people don't want to have anything to do with you. When confronted with a group of pictures, most people will pick a computer-generated average face as more attractive than an individual face. The more average, the more attractive. So we're looking for average. This was even done with individual faces. Merging left halves as a whole face made the face more symmetrical, creating a more attractive image. And I've got some examples right here. This is Scarlett Johansson, of course. This is the original picture. This is left symmetry, and this is right symmetry. And I guess you could ask yourself, which Scarlett is the most attractive? And actually, her face is so symmetrical, it really doesn't make much difference. Brad Pitt, which is the prettiest Brad Pitt?
What's wrong with
I'm sorry, they can't spell. What's wrong?
What's wrong with the one on the far right, the right symmetry?
This one?
Yeah.
What's wrong with it? It's two right sides.
The eyes are wide apart.
So which one's, is he prettier here than he is here?
Oh, the left one, yeah, it's more better because that one just looks like someone just messed up the Photoshop.
Yeah. He's got a line down the middle of his nose. His nose is wider. Okay, and his nose is really slender. Okay, well, it gets better. Or maybe not. This is Paris Hilton, of course. And she pretty much has a symmetrical face, too. One of the wealthiest women in the world. And this is nobody, but as you can see, his ears are bigger on the right. Okay. So what we're looking for is a symmetrical face. Using computer generation and various manipulation, researchers have discovered that the more a face accentuated the stereotypical female features, the more attractive the face was considered. The ideal female face has slightly smaller than average lower jaw. Remember, you guys picked the lady with the small jaw as compared to the lady with the big jaw. Slightly smaller than average jaw, fuller lips, and larger eyes. So we're looking for eyes, lips, and jaws as far as females are concerned. Men are seeking women with reproductive capacity. So they're looking for, it's known as neoteny. You're looking for somebody that's young. That's neoteny. So you're looking for larger eyes, you're looking for fuller lips. You're looking for a small, non-dominant chin as far as females are concerned. Men are looking for reproductive capacity in females. In their faces, as confusing as that is. When we've wandered around and found prehistoric sculptures, one of the things we found is a lot of women with large breasts, women with large hips. Obviously, that has to do with reproduction, and this has been called the Earth Mother. These are the Earth Mothers, and we find these in some of the oldest sculptures that we have ever found. We find this Earth Mother figure, the one with the big hips and the large breasts. Researchers have found that men seek women who have attributes that advertise them at their sexual peak. He seeks a woman whose waists are 30% narrower than her hips. This, of course, disqualifies women suffering from malnutrition. They're too slender. It disqualifies women who are pregnant because, of course, they have a larger gut. It also disqualifies women who have gone through menopause because as women go through menopause, their waists, which are relatively slender, all of a sudden becomes more similar to a man's waist than a woman's waist. Instead of being wasp-waisted, where their waists are smaller than their hips, now all of a sudden their waist and their hips are the same size. We're looking for a female with a baby face, and that's what this is all about. So you can see how attractive she is, and you can also see how her face looks just like it did when she was a baby. Okay. Big eyes, small chin, and large lips. And this is one of the reasons why women wear lipstick, to accentuate their lips. They're trying to make their lips look bigger. And of course, that's obviously what she's done. Big eyes, small chin. Yes, sir.
Is this just in Western cultures, or is this like across the globe?
All this is across the globe, everybody. Yeah, every place you go. Everywhere. It's everywhere, it's everywhere. What, you don't agree with that?
I was just trying to imagine this in the context of like in Asia,
Ah.
in Chinese.
Well, they're looking for small feet too. The Japanese are looking for small mouths, as bizarre as that seems. So Julia Roberts is ugly as far as they're concerned because she's got a really big mouth. It's a wide mouth, and they, you know, and if you look at geishas, they paint their mouths right in the middle of their mouth, and so it could be wider. It doesn't really matter, but they're painting just the middle of it so that their mouths look small. That's what the Japanese are looking for. Now, it gets really strange because they have selected for women who have small mouths. Now, the problem is there's not enough room for their teeth. So a lot of Japanese women, even today, have really crooked teeth and they have to get their teeth straightened out, as weird as that is. But, of course,
Then I was just kind of like wondering like how this plays out in different societies, because like with like indigenous societies versus societies that are huge, have large governments and stuff like that.
Sure.
That are advanced. Like for Navajo, for instance, there was no. You didn't pick your wife; she got picked for you.
Sure, yeah, that's in the old days.
And-
Of course, that doesn't happen that hardly at all now.
And it didn't happen anything on physical attributes. It was the family that the person
Sure,
belonged
of
to.
course. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's the same way it was in Japan. It's the same way it still is, kind of, to some extent, in India. You didn't select your wife, your family selected your wife. But beauty is still the same thing. So if we go, well, I'm going to show you a picture of a woman that was considered the most beautiful woman that India has ever produced. And she looks exactly like all the other pretty women in the world. As confusing as that is. So I would imagine.
So this is something like primal inside.
It seems to be. It seems to be, and it seems to have to do with being healthy and being
Able to reproduce.
Able to reproduce, exactly. So it's the same way for women. Women are looking at men. They're looking at somebody who's a good provider, and they're looking for somebody who is able to reproduce. So what does that guy look like? Well, he's not a skinny little nerdy guy. He looks like somebody who can actually kill something, and he also looks like somebody who has is the right size so that they can protect them. As confusing as that. That's not that confusing. Has to do with reproduction. Has to do with reproduction all over the world. So potentially, and the reason that this picture is here is because she's got wrinkles around her lips because she smokes. That's
So the marital system is irrelevant. This is just based on attraction.
attractiveness.
Okay.
Yeah, what people find as attractive. So if we look at the prom queens, no matter where it is, they look the same. They look very similar to one another. They look reproductive, but they also have these facial features, large eyes, kind of a slender nose, a slender chin, and full lips, as bizarre as it seems. And it doesn't matter where we are, it's always the same thing. Left or right? Who's the prettiest?
Right.
Left.
Left, right, right, left or right?
We're gonna have to go. It's close, but I'll have to say left.
Left, left. Okay, that's interesting. This is Crystal Gale, the sister of Loretta Lynn, of course. I don't know. She's also a member of the American Indian Music Hall of Fame.
She'll turn your eye, blue eyes, brown eyes, blue.
That's the lady. How Indian she is, I'm not exactly sure. Crystal Gale is actually from Wabash, Indiana, which is about 25 miles north of where I'm from. So, and I don't remember seeing Crystal Gale when I was growing up. But she's got hair that goes all the way to the ground. That was her. Dolly Parton has these enormous
Other attributes.
breasts. But Crystal Gale had hair that went all the way to the ground. And she also had shockingly blue eyes. And I find it interesting that you guys don't find her more attractive than the blonde on the left. But you can see how big her eyes are, how small her nose is, how small her chin is, and how full her lips are. So, I'm not exactly sure why you picked the other one. Okay, here we go. Left or right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right? Right? Left or right? Left? Right. Wow. Baby face. Remember? Baby face.
I was going for mental stability.
Well, you're talking about the mental stability. Go with this one. Left or right?
Left.
Left?
Left.
Left?
Right.
Left?
It's hard to say because you have a natural look and you have somebody who's trying.
Left or right?
Left.
Left or right? Let's not analyze it too much.
Yeah,
Okay,
look
left or
at the
right.
eyebrows, the trend nowadays, and women are doing that to their eyebrows and wondering why.
Looks like the same person almost.
It's not. Turns out it's not.
Left.
Left. All right. So what we do when we're looking at somebody, this is an automatic thing. You don't sit there and ponder, gee, I wonder if she's pretty or not. You don't do that. It just doesn't happen. When we see somebody, we decide whether they're pretty or whether they're not pretty. We compare everybody in the room. Men do this when they go into a room. They size up the room to see if there's anybody that's dangerous in there. Men do this, especially men that have been in the military, especially Marines. They seem to want to beat each other up. Women, on the other hand, are looking for a male mate whose body type suggests health and vigor. Once again, a good hip to waist ratio. They're not looking for a chubby guy. They're looking for somebody with a good hip to waist ratio. Muscular males are more likely to be good at providing and protecting, and from their appearance have been successful in the past at being a good provider and being a good protector. In other words, the more food you have eaten, the healthier you look. So if you're a good provider, if you're a good hunter, then you're probably fairly healthy looking. Facially, they must look mature and dominant, no baby faces, of course. And we're going to do this again. Left or right?
Left.
Left? Come on.
Left.
Left? Left or right? Left? Left or right?
Left.
Left? Left or right?
Left, right.
I'm sorry. Left or right?
Is it which one is more pretty? Right.
Right? Okay. You guys picked the baby face one. That's kind of weird. Okay. How about this pair? Left or right? Oh my God. they're both-
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right? Okay. There we go. He has a more masculine face. Men tend to be jealous more than women are. Green with jealousy. They seek to control a woman's reproduction and ensure themselves that they are not taking care of someone else's offspring. Men don't want to take care of anybody else's baby. This goes way, way back. Not just in humans, but of course other animals will do the same thing. A male lion will take over a pride, and the first thing he does is kill all the baby lions, the ones he can catch. He'll kill them all. And the reason he does it for two reasons. One, he doesn't want to be catching animals for somebody else's, and raising somebody else's cub. But the other reason is because he wants to kill the cubs so that the females will come into heat so that he can reproduce with those lions. And of course, we're animals, and we have no choice, of course. Men tend to be more upset with sexual infidelity, and women are more upset by emotional infidelity. So if a man falls in love with a woman, even though if he has never touched her, his significant other will get upset with him. However, a male gets really upset if his significant other has sex with another man. Why? Because potentially his significant other is going to reproduce with that individual. Women are more jealous of an attractive rival. Men are more jealous of a more dominant rival. Of course, this is one of the things that Donald Trump tries to project, the fact that he's so dominant. It's a continual thing for him. Even when he says stupid things, he still says them definitely. He says them positively, because he's trying to seem more dominant. Makes him a good leader.
I see that even when women are men will act that way sometimes.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, we're constantly trying to create a hierarchy of who's in charge of who's subordinate and who's in charge. It's a constant with men. And it's unfortunate, because we can't get along with each other very often. A lot of times we can't get along with each other. I was talking to an individual. I was talking about his Marine unit, and they used to fight all the time. Of course, they fought with each other, but what they were trying to do was determine, who's the biggest and baddest. No matter what their rank was, they were always fighting each other and attacking each other. It was a unit that would go out and snatch people. So the only two people that didn't that weren't part of that were the snipers, the sniper and his observer in the unit. But the rest of those guys were constantly fighting them, trying to figure out who was the biggest and baddest. As stupid as that sounds, doesn't seem to have very much to do with unit cohesiveness. However, attractiveness is relative. Gauging attractiveness is mostly based on who the individual is comparing the compared person to. So in a room full of people, we're comparing everybody to everybody else in the room. We saw this a lot in the military. When I was in the military, there weren't very many females in the military. So when you went on an isolated tour someplace, the only females to date were the ones that were around, and of course, guys would pick which one they wanted. So it was just the people that they were around. And a lot of times, these women would end up being married to the best-looking guy in the tour, on the tour. And of course, when they went back to the States, now all of a sudden, this lady that was the most gorgeous creature in Korea, all of a sudden, we're comparing her with Scarlett Johansson and whatever. So all of a sudden, she's not nearly as attractive as she was. But she's got the best looking guy in the unit, because he was, he won. And now he lost.
I saw that in Japan, Okinawa.
Yeah.
Call them queens for a year.
Yeah, queens for a year, exactly. Yeah, and you go, wait a minute, what's she doing with him? And then you realize, well, they were on an isolated tour someplace, and she was the best looking person on base. And so, this Adonis has married this lady that, when you compare her with the people in the general population, she's not that attractive. But in the military population, she was very attractive. As confusing as all that is. Anyway, and this, when we talk about military marriages, a lot of times that's what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that because they were in a select situation, they got married because he was the most attractive and she was the most attractive, and that's the way it worked out. As stupid as that sounds. Depending on whom the individual is around and whom they've been looking at lately, people tend to compare individuals to whom they have seen And this is one of the reasons why we talk about this all the time. You're more likely to marry or to be with an individual that you work with. So if you're talking about, I don't know, you're talking about this college, you know, this is a singular environment. So potentially, people are looking at the individuals only at this institution.
So does that mean that people who are more selective are more intelligent or more self-aware?
Probably not. This is all happening subconsciously. This is all happening below, subliminally. We're not thinking, oh, well, we are thinking, oh, she's pretty, but we're not going, her nose is just a little bit bigger than I like. We're not thinking that. What's a good example? Nebraska has a lot of Scandinavians, so there's a lot of blonde-headed people. You go into a classroom in a high school and like 3/4 of the individuals have blonde hair. As weird as that sounds. Blonde is not a dominant color, but you know, in that environment, that it is. So that's the norm there. So when you're selecting an individual, are you selecting someone with blonde hair, or are you selecting someone with darker hair? Why am I talking about this? Oh, so you're comparing people with who they're around. Now in another environment, you know, blonde is considered very attractive. In another environment where everybody else has brown and black hair, the blonde is going to stick out. It's going to stand out. No matter what they look like, all of a sudden her blonde hair is very distinctive. Yes, sir.
Does this have anything to do with why they say like men will subconsciously look for women that resemble their mother, and women will look for people that are similar to their father?
Yeah, which
That was their model.
which makes sense. I mean, most of us don't travel very far away from home. So all the people that live around us are going to look like us. So yeah, you're going to find somebody that looks like your mom. Men are going to find somebody that looks like their mom. Women are going to find somebody that looks and acts like their father. If their father is an alcoholic, they'll be looking for somebody who's an alcoholic, strangely enough. Even if they don't like their dad, they will still find somebody that acts like that. Because as far as they're concerned, that's normal behavior. And a lot of this isn't conscious thought. This is mostly subconscious, subliminal thought. So we are reacting to our environment. We are trying to mirror our environment by selecting somebody who fits into our environment. You don't want to, and this has happened to my daughter a couple times. We didn't grow up rich, okay? But when she went off to college, all of a sudden she found this boyfriend who's, you know, his family had millions and millions of dollars. Well, the reality was, and it didn't work out very well, because rich people act different than people who don't have a lot of money. They really do. They're very, very different. And it was an abysmal failure. No, we won't go into that. So the next time she found a boyfriend, guess who she found? Another rich kid. It was just fascinating for one thing, but it was also, as a sociological experiment, it was fascinating. But as far as my daughter's heart being broken, it just happened over and over and over again. Because these individuals would not, they liked her, but they couldn't marry her because she was not rich, and she didn't understand. She didn't understand the environment. As stupid as that is. So yes, we are looking for somebody who is from our own environment. So yes, we're looking for a mother, and yes, we're looking for our father. So hopefully your mother's not a bitch and your father's not
A jerk.
a jerk. Oh, we can't. Now, the bizarre thing is, my mother was a pretty nice person, well, kind of. But my first two wives were, well, my first wife was pretty bad. So you gotta wonder. And I found her in my hometown. She's my high school sweetheart. So I don't know what that says about things. I don't know. I have no idea. Haven't figured it out yet. Even viewing super attractive people of the same sex will make an individual see themselves as less attractive. And of course, this is a problem. A lot of individuals don't realize how attractive they are because their best friend is, you know, is Scarlett Johansson or Rihanna or Halle Berry or so they don't understand how attractive they are. Oh, here you go. Okay. This is Arai is her last name. Anyway, she's is a beauty queen from India. So as you can see, she looks, you know, she's pretty. She's really, really pretty. Does she look like other Indian women? She's a little lighter complexion, that's about it. Her eyes are blue, and that's about it too. But her facial features, I can't remember what this lady's name is.
There seems to be a common theme, colonized view of beauty. I noticed that like in Hollywood, Bollywood, if you look at a lot of the actresses, even in Thailand, women prefer to have...
They look more Western?
Women prefer to have children with Anglos so that their children will be half, so they'll resemble more Western.
Yeah, but we didn't see that in India. We didn't see that in India. When you have a dominant society, like Thailand, that was relatively common up in Canada with the French. We've already talked about that, the tribe of half-breeds. They call them Métis. Métis means half-breed, strangely enough. But there were a lot of natives up there that wanted to marry Frenchmen, or whatever, or Frenchmen that wanted to marry native women. And the same thing happened on the Fort Belknap Reservation. A family called, with the last name of Work, W-E-R-K, it was a German family. They had like 7 boys, and they all married Growan women. They all married Ani women. And so that's part of the tribe, this whole group of individuals that were part German and part native.
But I guess to go back on what I just said, it doesn't matter because it's still the same physical attributes.
Exactly. So whether they're pure-blooded, pure or partial,
it doesn't matter on the cultural.
It doesn't matter because you're just looking for
Reproduction.
you're just looking for the same physical features. Halle Berry's mother is white, but her father is black. Rihanna's mother and father are both black. Not that it makes any difference. But as you can see, we're looking at the same features with Rihanna and Halle Berry as we are with the Hispanic lady and with the Indian lady. We're looking at the same features. Scarlett Johansson, who's Swedish. I don't know who the other lady is. I knew it once upon a time. But, you know, same physical features. So if we look at Scarlett Johansson, who's pale as death, and we look at these 2 women, they've got exactly the same facial features. Now the question is it the same for men? Ryan Reynolds, I don't know who the other guy is, but Ryan Reynolds...
That's that dude from, is that Harry Potter?
No, I don't think so.
I just I've never seen any of them, it just popped in my mind.
I just snatched his picture off the internet. But of course Ryan Reynolds is Canadian, but does that make any difference? Is he still English? His last name is Reynolds. Ashton Kutcher, of course, is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and he had all that facial work done. And the other gentleman, of course, is African, of African descent to some extent, but he doesn't seem to have African features, does he? His nose certainly isn't African. it's too slender. And maybe he had his nose fixed like Michael Jackson did. Anyway, so in men, of course, you're looking for dominance. You're looking for no baby faces, of course. And I don't know who the guy on the left is, but the guy on the right is Brad Pitt. Same thing. We're looking at exactly the same thing. So attractiveness is attractiveness, and whether it's one ethnic group, one pure ethnic group, or a mixture.
So it doesn't matter, the culture doesn't matter either.
Doesn't matter
It's
either.
just the same
Exactly.
thing we're looking for across the
Exactly.
board.
Yeah. Yeah. All attractive women have the same facial features,
Yeah.
no matter what. And that's one of the reasons I put this group up here. She's Hispanic, she's Asian Indian, she is half white and half black, she's all black, which sounds like a New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. It's a rugby team. Okay, anyway, and these two individuals are both white. So, and the same thing with males. Pretty is pretty. It doesn't really matter what race you are. I remember when I was talking to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was from Georgia. My current mother-in-law. She's dead now, so she's not my current. My late mother-in-law. She said, I don't know. Black women can never win Miss America because they're so unattractive. And of course, it was like that year that Williams, what's her first name?
Vanessa.
Vanessa Williams, yeah, won Miss America, and she's black, which I thought was just hilarious. Anyway, attractiveness is not perpetual, nor is it permanent, strangely enough. While people perceive attractive people as more likable, they, on the other hand, find more pleasant people more attractive. When people were presented with a personality profile of an individual as well as a photograph, they rated warm, helpful, and considerate people as more attractive. But that's after you get to know them. When you first see them, the attractiveness is the only aspect. You haven't even talked to them yet, so you have no idea what they're actually like. The happier two people are with one another, the less likely that they will look at a member of the opposite sex as a potential love object. Monogamous relationships have been successful for eons because love blinds the person to their own mate's flaws and keeps them from looking for greener grass. So when we have a significant other, we tend to overlook whatever deficits they have. And of course, if you've ever been screwed around, then you probably, the reason that you weren't it wasn't more obvious to you is because you were overlooking all of the negative things about them. This is a reality, and this is one that we need to accept. Sure, you know, maybe our heart has been broken over and over and over and over and over again, but it's not really your fault. Because you are a human, your genes have told you to overlook your mate's flaws. And for that reason, sometimes you don't catch whatever's going on, and then you get stung. It's happened to me a couple times. Well, more than a couple times. It's happened to me several times. And I'm just as dumb as the next guy, despite the fact I know all this shit. It could happen, right? I mean, my current wife, we've been married for 40 years, started 40th wedding anniversary in June 12th. I'm sorry, June, what's Flag Day? Is it the 14th or the 12th? Okay, whatever it is, Flag Day, it's not. We weren't married on Flag Day. We were either married on the 12th or the 14th. I think 14th is Flag. Okay, so we were married on the 12th. Anyway, she could have been screwing around on me, and I'm completely oblivious to whatever's going on. It's possible, but because love is blinding, it makes you overlook those things, just so that you can stay together. And it makes, of course, in the wrong environment, this can really be devastating to you.
So it's that primal need for security.
Right. Yeah. We need to pair bond. and we need to pair bond with the opposite sex. We need friends, but we also need somebody from the opposite sex. Pair bonding. Or we need a significant other, somebody that gives us unconditional positive regard. So that's our mother and our father until we become adults, and after we become adults, we need somebody else to pair bond with. We need somebody else to give us unconditional positive regard. I mean, our mother and our father can't do this anymore because it had to do with a superior and subordinate position. So now we need to pair bond with somebody on an equal basis. So it could actually be male or female. It really doesn't matter as far as romance is concerned, but it does have to do with the need to pair bond. People who are married or even just friends are more likely to have common attitudes, beliefs, and values. Research seems to indicate that the greater the similarity between spouses, the happier they are and the less likely that they will get a divorce. People who have similar ideas are considered more intelligent and likable than people who disagree with us, and so we want somebody who has similar ideas to what we do. Now, oddly enough, my mother and father were married for, golly, how long? 56 years, I think, before somebody finally died. But one was a Republican and the other was a Democrat. One was conservative and the other one was liberal. And so you wonder, well, how in the world did they ever get along? Well, they never talked politics. That's how they got along. Except at the dinner table. Everything was, of course, they had 6 kids together, so obviously something was going on. They had 6 kids, and we liked to discuss things. So we would discuss politics at the dinner table, but that's the only time they ever discussed politics. If the television was on, they never discussed politics. My dad was a Hooverian Republican, and my mother was a Rooseveltian Democrat. Of course, Hoover was the guy that decided that the Depression we should allow the Depression to go away on its own. And of course, Roosevelt was the guy that he did all kinds of stuff. He made it go away. That's what he did.
A lot of the places on the reservation are because of his, when he
Was that right? CCC?
Yeah.
WPA?
The dams and different things.
Yeah.
Roads that were built.
They did a good job, didn't they? All that CCC stuff is still around. All the buildings that they built, all the dams that they built, the roads that they built. It's amazing. Dissimilarity, on the other hand, breeds dislike. One of the strengths of the United States has been its ability to amalgamate disparate people into their culture through forced assimilation. Now, the odd thing is that if we look at the immigrants that were coming in, a lot of times these people were very, very much different from the people that were already here. And for that reason, they were denigrated. They were rejected. And you can look at any group that you want. There's probably a very negative name that they used to describe those select individuals. The Irish, they hated the Irish. The English have always hated the Irish, and the United States was primarily English. The other problem that we have had in the United States is that the largest number of immigrants we have had in the United States were German. And Germans don't like other people. They only like themselves. You can look at what Hitler did during World War II. Whenever he went into a new area, he always embraced the German-speaking people, and he rejected the other people, whoever else was there. When he went into Russia, the German-speaking Russians he embraced, and the Slavs he annihilated. And he did the same thing wherever he went. When he went into the Ukraine, he embraced the German-speaking people, who eventually became the guards at his concentration camps. When he went into Croatia, of course, the Croatians are not only are they Catholic, but they do speak German. When he went into Serbia, of course, this is what became Yugoslavia. The Serbs were all Slavs, and they had a different religion, and those people he tried to annihilate. So Germans are like themselves, but they don't like anybody else, which is kind of weird. Anyway, so when we have a lot of Germans in the United States, and these individuals tend to be, tend to not like other individuals. So they like themselves, but they dislike everybody else, as weird as that sounds. So when we look at abolition in the United States, the abolition was not coming out of the Anabaptist group. The Anabaptists were the Moravians, the Amish, the Mennonites, who else was Hutterites. These are all Germanic people, and they don't like anybody but themselves, as bizarre as that seems. Of course, they have learned to be around other people. So assimilation was necessary for all the immigrants coming in as well. Some of them were able to amalgamate easily, some of them weren't. The assimilation has created an idea that all white Europeans are pretty much the same. That's not true at all. The English have one idea, the Germans have another idea, the French have another idea, the Irish have another idea. The Italians, of course, were denigrated people until just after World War II. The Italians. They hated Italians. Everybody thought they were members of the mafia. They thought they were greasy. So, you know, if you think of some of the names that they've called people, greasers is not, of course, doesn't refer to Italians. It's theoretically, it refers to people from Mexico. All these denigrative names that they have called people, the reality is there's a lot of hate out there, unfortunately. And some people, it's more natural with them than others. Same thing happened with the indigenous peoples. There were people that came in that wanted to annihilate everybody. And this was always a question throughout the 19th and into the 20th, well, not really into the 20th century, the Indian Wars ended by that time. But in the 18th and 19th centuries, the question was, what are we going to do with all these indigenous people that actually own all the land? That was the question. And there were a lot of individuals who came from countries where you do that, where you perform genocide on the group that you don't like. There were people in the government who wanted to do away with all the Indians, as many as they possibly could. And fortunately but of course fortunately there were people that had different ideas. And a lot of these individuals were also the individuals that didn't like slavery. They were in favor of abolition, doing away with slavery. I was talking to Marius about this yesterday. We had some strange conversations. I mean, you've got to understand that when you're talking about white people, you're not talking about one group. You're talking about hundreds of groups, thousands of groups of individuals. You're talking about Southerners. You're talking about Northeasterners. You're talking about Midwesterners. I was watching Gettysburg last night, and it was of course, Gettysburg was fought in Pennsylvania. And the Southerners, of course, were fighting to maintain their lifestyle. And their lifestyle had to do with slavery, even though all of them didn't have slaves. But one side was fighting for slavery, and the other side was fighting against it. This was a fight in the East, so most of the troops were from Pennsylvania, New York, and Maine, and New Hampshire. But there was one unit from the West. And that unit was from Wisconsin. Yeah, you guys are going, West? Oh, you mean Arizona? No, they were from Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan. That was the frontier West in the 1860s. And they fought differently. The Westerners fought differently than the Easterners did. The Easterners usually shot one time and then turned around and went the other way. Because they were city people, because they were new immigrants. But the individuals that were from the West, the troops from Wisconsin and Indiana and Michigan, they just stand there and slug it out with the Confederates. And of course, the Confederates weren't used to that because they were used to just running all over. This was in the East. Why am I talking about this? I had a point. Oh, we're talking about All white people are not the same, okay. So, I mean, we had these two groups, and the group from the West were called the Iron Brigade. And the reason they were called the Iron Brigade is because they never moved. They didn't move until they were told to move. And the troops from the East, like I said, would shoot one time and turn around and go the other way. They would retreat. But the guys from the West, they were, for one thing, they understood weaponry because they were hunters, and they were also Indian fighters, had fought Indians at some point. So they were more used to fighting. So it was a really kind of an interesting battle because the troops, they were in the East. The South was invading the East. They were invading Pennsylvania, and it was the Pennsylvanians that ran away. They were the ones that retreated. But it was the guys from the West that stood there and won the battle. In essence, they won the battle. So, my whole point is the white Europeans are not all the same. And there were people that wanted to annihilate everybody. They wanted to just do away with everybody. And one of these guys was Andrew Jackson. Remember, Andrew Jackson was president of the United States. He wanted to remove, he wanted all that land that the Cherokees, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and the Creek and the Seminole owned. He wanted all that land to build plantations on. And the Supreme Court agreed with the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminoles. And by golly, he moved them out anyway. He got rid of them. He wanted to kill them all. So when he moved them west, of course, he moved them to Oklahoma. That was the longer one.
What was the culture like in England before, like Victorian time? What was their own natural culture like? Where did they adopt their current culture from?
Well, it's really kind of interesting. Before the Revolutionary War, one of the things that the English were trying to do, they were trying to create a native homeland, and that was west of the Appalachian Mountains. They wouldn't let people travel over the mountains and take over the land, despite the fact that, of course, they could make a lot of money. So the English were trying to create an American Indian homeland in the Ohio Valley. So that was one of the reasons why the war started, as ugly as that is. These guys, the Patriots, the Americans, wanted to move over there. That was really good farmland. And so they wanted to move over there. They wanted to sell it too. So the English wanted to create a homeland for the American Indians, and of course the Americans didn't. They wanted to manifest destiny, the whole thing. So they wanted to move in.
Where did that idea of manifest destiny come
It's an old idea and it's a new idea. They had that idea before, but they didn't really come up with the phrase manifest destiny until the 1860s. After they started moving across the Mississippi River, that's when it all started. So I mean, the whole idea was that the land wasn't being properly utilized. There weren't enough Indians. They wanted all this hunting land. They wanted all this land for hunting.
I always think of that notion about hurt people hurt others, and I was just thinking about Europeans that were colonized at one point, because they were like us too at one point. Europeans were indigenous at one point.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Well, they were indigenous in their own country.
Yeah, they had their own ceremonies, like sure did, their own language.
Yeah.
And they got colonized at some point. I don't know.
Over and over again.
I don't know if it was I was gonna say the Crusades, but even before that, even with the Romans.
Sure. Yeah, the Romans kept trying to conquer the Germans, the Gauls, what they called the Gauls. It was just a continual warfare, as far as they were concerned. Somebody was always trying to take over. It was different countries. Germany's the worst. Germany had like 100 different principalities right there in what is now Germany. The Swedes came through, the Poles came through, the Austrians came up. You know, they were just coming from all over the place. The French moved in and chopped out little chunks of Germany. So Germany wasn't really a country until 1870. As weird as this is. Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this history? This is ugly stuff. The reality is that all groups except for the English have been denigrated at one point in U.S. history by one generation or another, and only through discarding differences and accepting the melting pot have people gone from hated status to accepted status. The reality is that the Italians were hated until the 1950s, and strangely enough, the reason that people started liking the Italians was not only because they were really good fighters during World War II, but also because Annette Funicello was one of the Musketeers. She was a cute little thing, and everybody just fell in love with Annette Funicello. And at that point, everybody decided that Italians were okay. As bizarre as that sounds. I was around when that was taking place. She had black hair. Before the 1950s, if you had black hair, there was something wrong with you. Theoretically, there was something wrong with you. So, Hayward, what's her first name? Rita Hayward, thank you. Rita Hayward was actually half Mexican, and her hair was actually black, but they dyed it red so that she would be acceptable. She was a very attractive woman, but as long as she had red hair, she was okay. She never had black hair, even though that was her natural hair color. So all these actresses, they dyed their hair a color that was acceptable. Anybody with black hair, they dyed it some other color, as weird as that sounds. So that's the way it works, okay? And, and we'll talk more about this next time. We need to stop right now, I guess. That's much fun to solve this.